Hey folks, thanks for joining me today on today's virtual session. My name is Manny Sandhu. I am a PM with our Microsoft Teams engineering group with a focus on education. Today's session is about managing campus and student workers leveraging Microsoft Teams, the shifts capability. Our agenda today, first defining what is a shift worker. We'll deep dive a bit more into shifts with a short demo as well. We're going to introduce what our first line worker scenarios are, and then we'll recap and provide some resources at the end of it. Just a reminder, this session is not an introductory to Teams session. My colleague Dominic has created one. It is available on demand for you at the URL listed on your screen right now. All right, let's dive in. So who are shift workers in education? Before I answer that, I'm going to take a step back and introduce a term that some of you may or may not have heard, and that's called first line workers. Microsoft has coined the term first line workers, which represent the groups of individuals who typically first engage customers. They represent the customer's brand. They see products and services in action and are generally considered the heartbeat of the industry. Now, how does that translate in education? There are three buckets, if you will, which shift workers or first line workers uh, exist in education. The first bucket is your support staff. So whether you're a K-12, whether you're higher education, the transportation workers, the folks that take take the students on either a shuttle or on the bus to school or between different campuses. Security for the institution. If you have some sort of hospitality or dining halls associated there as a business, those are shift workers. Retail, as well as the maintenance crew. In higher education, it's generally summed up as auxiliary workers or office of the physical plant type workers. The second major bucket we have is student workers. So whether you are an academic student worker or a non-academic student worker, so academic assistant, research assistant, or resident assistant, help desk at a library, or you work at the dining hall in between classes. Those are all examples of student workers who can leverage the shift capability. And then lastly is if your institution has healthcare, that is an example of doctors and nurses, orderlies, janitors, custodial staff, maintenance crews, who all would need that capability of shifts. Let's take a deeper dive into the student use case. Student workers are an extension of first line workers. They need the same tools to effectively do their jobs. They need to be able to communicate with their peers. They need quick access to documents such as manuals. They need to be able to access applications like work orders or incident reports, as well as being able to view their upcoming schedules. Microsoft Teams provides this all within a mobile experience. With shifts, managers can easily plan shift schedules, manage requests for swaps of time offs. Employees can view their shifts. We offer a time clock, which makes time tracking a snap. Employees can clock in and out using their mobile devices. Managers can set up optional geolocation or location detection to detect whether an employee is checking in and out within the appropriate boundaries. That's all capable. And then lastly, uh, the Shift's capability has APIs available to integrate into workforce management systems to making your existing investments seamless in working with Microsoft Teams and the Shift's capability. Expanding a little bit more on shifts, it's very important to point out that the experience on the desktop or the experience on the mobile device is a near parity experience. So shift managers can be able to plan schedules for teams from the desktop or web application. They can broadcast open and unfilled shifts. They can accept or deny time off or shift changes from their mobile device on the fly. Now, the employee or the shift worker can view their shift. They can view requests for their colleagues to see who's able to cover their time or swap shifts around. They're able to then also determine or set their availability for specific days or specific hours, which will then feed into the manager view, allowing them to give and set shifts based on those limitations. Now, each work environment is different, but what's important is the need to access the right tools and applications at your fingertips. Using admin provisioning policies, you can pin specific applications to be accessed through the mobile device and foster a better work-life balance through custom notifications and quiet hours. Let's see this in action. So from this point of view, this is the manager point of view. I have the capability to go into shifts and then I can manage my shift employees, in this case, library employees. I can manage my student workers as well as any other first line workers that I may be responsible for. This is particularly powerful from the point of view of the student, where there's only a single tool which allows them to go manage their classes as well as their shifts. Now, the student view or the mobile view, you can see that they have their science biology class as well as their library employees team. That library employees team then has shifts that you can see at the bottom taskbar. It allows me to see my upcoming assignments as well as my shifts from a singular view. I can see my current shifts. I can click on open shifts to request those shifts. And when I click on an existing shift, it allows me to clock in and clock out. It allows me to define how long my breaks are, as well as optional geofencing. Make sure I can only do this within the campus. That was just a brief overview of how the Shift's capabilities in Microsoft Teams can be applied to student workers. Now let's shift our focus a little bit and look at the true first line workers or the support staff for our institutions. After an afterthought in most organizations' digital transformation efforts, the first line workplace is defined by legacy tools, manual processes, and fragmented technology experience. So if you look at bulletin boards, a mixture of walkie-talkies, mobile devices, as well as complex landscapes, that defines how our support staff generally works at most institutions. This is starting to change. Business leaders are increasingly looking at this workforce as new ways to operate, more standardized ways to operate, and bringing them into allowing them to leverage cloud-based tools and modern experiences to bring the best out of this audience here. Some of the common challenges these audience has, if you really look at it from the institutional side, institution, there's a large communication gap. There's a large gap between leadership of an educational institution as well as the first line worker. So how do we leverage technology to bridge that gap between the decisions that are made to the folks who are doing some of the work. The managers in this space, they have generally a lot of manual processes around scheduling, task work, paperwork that take away their time to engage with their team to either provide training to them or deal with any escalations that they have. And then if you look at the workers themselves, they tend to feel that communications are slow to get to them, they're ineffective, they feel disconnected from the institution when they are actually a critical part of the institution. Now, if we were to look at the true definition of first line worker, which I stated, there's actually 6 buckets that they fall into, right? So, or 6 uh, pillars in which technology can transform and support them. We covered very briefly the shift capability with the student workers. We talked about the administrative app policy, which gives them a customized view with the right applications pre-pinned right at their fingertips. There are 4 other ones. Um, One is developing a solution as teams within teams for the first line workers, being able to connect and engage with the first line workers through announcements and live events and praises, uh, empowering them to communicate. So we are bringing them part of a team, as well as contextual information. So they have the right information when they need it to be more effective at their jobs. Now, this is a very different concept that folks are not generally familiar with, but Teams is actually a platform. We have an app store. We encourage our partners to develop applications in the app store. We also have a number of APIs available, which allow institutions to develop their own applications, if you will, inside of Teams. And there's a number of ways that can look like. It can be a tab, it can be a bot, it can be a messaging extension, a connector, or just something into the activity feed, which enables um, your line of business applications to be connected into the Teams platform. Um, Depending on what you're developing, it's going to be different things. If you're doing incident management, somebody reports a ticket that an air conditioning isn't working somewhere, that may be a bot that pings the individual and says, hey, this ticket has come in, you're the closest person, please acknowledge that you're going to go take care of it. Whether it's things like incident reports, where you could use things like adaptive cards, where an incident, they file an incident report, they're able to take pictures from that incident report, and it automatically files on the individual's behalf. Whatever that looks like, uh, Teams is a platform which enables those types of line of business applications to come together. Now, I find this stat really alarming is, 1.6 hours per week reviewing company updates. That's 1.6 hours a week that's being taken away from other aspects of their job. So by enabling a digital and cloud first platform, you're able to engage and connect those first line workers within your institution. You can leverage Teams live broadcast for broadcast events. You can leverage the announcements capability, so it's really easily drawn the attention of the first line worker. We also have what I personally really like is the praise capability. There's a lot of statistics around how to engage workers, and one of the most simplest one is give them praise. So whether it be a manager praise, whether it be a peer praise, having that praise capability and having it shared amongst the team is a great way to keep employees engaged. Empower communications in collaboration. You'll notice Teams works across all platforms, whether you're using mobile, whether you're using a desktop, Apple, number of browsers. It has a very social feel to it. It allows you to connect with your manager as well as your peers. It allows you to react to messages, not just via text, but also emojis or rich gifs. If you chose to send a voice message, take pictures, share your location through a number of different use cases, all of that is capable within Teams. I have a customer I support, a very interesting use case, and I didn't actually help them with this. They ended up coming to me saying this is how we're using it. They use Teams with their parking lot attendants. So every attendant in the morning picks up a device, logs in, and that is their team that they are part of, and each parking lot is their own team within Microsoft Teams. It allows those parking lot attendants to get messages such as, yes, this individual with this license plate has called in, don't give them a ticket. We're going to give them an extra half an hour, so that a parking lot attendant can acknowledge it, saying, "Yes, I understand." If there was an incident that occurred in the parking lot, they take their device, send the location of the incident, they load the incident app within their mobile device, and then they take pictures of the incident and log the incident while while being inside of their team. So that gives them the power to communicate and acknowledge from dispatch a message was received. It allows them to very quickly report an incident, do an incident report, saving a lot of time and having that information then fed directly into the system, the incident management system. Very great use of technology. Now, we all like to think we know everything, but reality is we just need to know where everything is when we need to use it. Um, the workers are the same way. Whether they need to access uh, manuals or processes, having the files repository within a team is useful. By clicking on files, they can actually see what is the inventory process, what is the process, what is the onboarding process, what's the handbook that I need to know so I can quickly review the information. And if they don't know exactly where to look, they can search for that information. We have contextual access to contextual information, where if they type in the example handbook, it's going to show all the files or messages where handbook was related. Now, how is that applicable? Imagine a simplified onboarding process where you onboard an individual, and they're very, you give them the tools where they can do searches amongst the content that's there to, instead of going back out saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? I forgot how to do this. Information at their fingertips, allowing them to be onboarded quicker than they typically would. I'm gonna just leave these stats up for a second. I think they're pretty alarming. These stats, right? 91% of business leaders indicate an increase in performance and productivity when these workers are digitally empowered. 64% of business leaders indicate a decrease in employee turnover, and 81% of the executives agree anonymity between organizations make them more competitive. These are just some of the use cases that within students or the administrative staff within the institution can use the Shift's capability as well as the broader first line worker capability that's included in Microsoft Teams. Now, as we wrap up our session, there's a couple call to actions that I have. First, I want to thank you for joining us. I see there's been a number of questions coming through. We'll do our best to answer those as quickly as we can. get started. If you haven't used Teams and this is your first experience with Teams, aka.ms/get Teams. Start downloading Teams, whether it's on your mobile device or on your laptop. Our organization, maintains an excellent resource for you to determine when you see how Teams can be used in higher education, aka.ms/Teams University. We also run regular webinars for our customers on how different usage scenarios between staff, students, researchers, teaching and learning, healthcare, shift workers in this case, and you can find a list of those at aka.ms/Teams edu webinars. With that, I want to thank you again for your time. I hope this was an insightful session for you around some of the capabilities, the lesser known capabilities of Microsoft Teams, in particular with student shift workers as well as staff first line workers. Thank you once again.